The alarm screamed through the metal corridors of Harmony Prime. Red lights flashed across every surface. Jiwoo ran as fast as he could, his tool belt bouncing against his hip with each step. Smoke filled the air around him. His eyes burned. His lungs hurt. But he kept running. He was just a repair technician. Nothing special. He fixed broken machines and replaced old wires. Today was supposed to be simple. Check the power systems in Section 9. Write a report. Go home. But nothing was simple anymore. The explosion happened 30 minutes ago. Something in the main reactor went wrong. Very wrong. Now the whole station was dying. 10,000 people lived on Harmony Prime. They all needed the life support systems to keep working. Those systems were failing. Jiwoo was the only technician close enough to help. He reached the sealed door to Section 9. His hands shook as he entered the emergency code. The door opened with a hiss. Cold air rushed out. Section 9 was supposed to be empty. Nobody came here anymore. It was too old, too dangerous. But the backup power controls were here. If he could reach them, he might save everyone. Jiwoo stepped inside. The lights were dim. Strange sounds echoed through the empty halls. His footsteps seemed too loud. Something felt wrong about this place. Not just dangerous. Wrong in a way he could not explain. The air itself felt different here. Heavy. Thick. Like walking through water. He found the backup controls at the end of a long corridor. But they were not what he expected. Behind the control panel, the wall glowed with strange blue light. Symbols covered the surface. They looked old, ancient. They did not match any human writing he had ever seen. They did not match any alien language he knew either. Jiwoo touched the control panel. It was dead. Completely dead. He needed to get behind it. Maybe he could rewire it directly. He pulled open the panel cover. The blue symbols grew brighter. They began to move, spinning, rotating, forming patterns that hurt to look at. His fingers touched something smooth behind the panel. Not metal, not plastic, something else, something warm. The symbols exploded into brilliant light. The floor disappeared beneath him. He was falling, no, not falling, moving, being pulled. Dragged through space itself, Jiwoo screamed. Nobody heard him. The universe stretched around him like rubber. Stars became lines. Space became meaningless. Time became nothing. Then everything stopped. He lay on a floor made of crystal. Or maybe light. He could not tell. Everything around him glowed softly. The air smelled like flowers he had never seen. Like rain on worlds he had never visited. He pushed himself to his knees. His whole body ached. His head spun. Where was he? This was not Section 9. This was not Harmony Prime. This was not anywhere he recognized. Tall pillars rose around him. They reached up forever. Or maybe they did not reach anywhere at all. Looking at them made his eyes water. The geometry was wrong, impossible, a voice spoke. It sounded like music. Like thunder. Like silence. All at once. Jiwoo could not tell where it came from. It came from everywhere. From nowhere. From inside his own head, a figure appeared before him. She walked out of the light itself. Or maybe she was the light. Jiwoo could not look directly at her. She was too bright. Too beautiful, too much. But he could see enough. She looked almost human. Almost. Her skin glowed like starlight. Her eyes held galaxies. Her hair moved like it was underwater, flowing and shifting in patterns that made no sense. The being spoke again. This time, Jiwoo understood the words. They formed in his mind more than his ears. Her name was Haewon. She was ancient. Older than Earth, older than humanity. Older than most of the stars he could see in the night sky. Billions of beings across the galaxy worshipped her as a goddess. Jiwoo tried to speak. His mouth was too dry. He tried again. His voice came out as a whisper. He asked where he was. What was happening? Why was he here? Haewon's expression did not change. She looked at him the way someone might look at an insect. Not with hate. Not with love. With nothing. Empty curiosity, she explained in that strange voice that filled his head. He had activated an artifact. A very old artifact. One that had been hidden in Harmony Prime for thousands of years. By touching it, he completed a ritual. A binding. A contract older than his entire species. The ritual granted him 3 wishes. She would fulfill them. She had no choice. This was the law. This was the way. This happened once every 1,000 years. Always the same. always predictable. Mortals found the artifacts. Mortals made their wishes. She granted them. Then she returned to her temple and waited for the next 1,000 years. Jiwoo stared at her. 3 wishes. It sounded like a fairy tale, like something from old Earth stories, but this was real, too real. His hands still shook. His heart still pounded. This was happening. This was actually happening. HFY began to recite a list. It sounded like she had said these words many times before. Thousands of times. She told him what others had wished for. Immortality. That was common. Power over others. Very common. Wealth beyond measure. Knowledge of the universe, youth, beauty, revenge, love, control. Always the same patterns. Always the same desires. Mortals were predictable, boring, simple. She looked at him with those galaxy eyes. She waited. She expected him to wish for something from that list. Something predictable. Something she had granted 100 times before. Her face showed nothing. No interest. No excitement. Just the empty patience of someone who had lived too long and seen too much. Jiwoo thought about his situation. He thought about Harmony Prime. The station was dying. His friends were there. Taeyang, Da-un. 10,000 people. He could wish to save them. That would be smart. That would be right. But something stopped him. He looked at HFY again. Really looked at her. Past the light. Past the impossible beauty. Past the power that made the air around her vibrate. He saw something else. Something hidden. She looked tired. Not physically tired. Something deeper. Something in her eyes. The eyes that held galaxies. Those eyes looked empty. Alone. Isolated by power so great that nothing could touch her. Nothing could reach her. Nothing could make her feel anything at all. How long had she existed like this? How many wishes had she granted? How many mortals had she watched live and die? How many civilizations had she seen rise and fall? And through it all, she remained the same. Unchanged, untouched, unreachable. What kind of existence was that? What kind of life? Jiwoo made his decision. It was stupid. It was crazy. It was completely insane. But it felt right. He took a deep breath. His voice was steady when he spoke. He made his first wish. He did not wish for wealth. He did not wish for power. He did not wish to save Harmony Prime. He wished for something else, something that made HFY's eternal eyes go wide. For the first time in thousands of years, she looked surprised. Actually surprised, Jiwoo wished for HFY to experience one day as a mortal. One day to feel what it meant to be truly alive. To feel hunger. To feel tired. To feel uncertain. To feel connected to something. To feel anything at all. Not as a goddess watching from above, but as someone living. Someone real. Someone who could be touched by the world instead of being forever separate from it. The temple went silent. The light around HFY flickered. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. She stared at Jiwoo like she was seeing him for the first time. Like he was not an insect. Not a predictable mortal. But something new. Something impossible. Something that should not exist. No one had ever wished for her benefit. Not once. Not in all the countless times this ritual had been performed. Every mortal who stood before her wanted something for themselves. That was the pattern. That was how it always worked, always, but this human, this insignificant repair technician, he had broken the pattern. HFY tried to speak. Her voice, usually so powerful and sure, hesitated. She asked why. Why would he waste a wish on her? Why would he give up something so valuable? Did he not understand what he was throwing away? Did he not realize he could ask for anything? Anything at all? Jiwoo smiled. It was a sad smile. He told her that power was not everything. That maybe being alone at the top of existence was the worst prison of all. That maybe she deserved to feel what it meant to be part of something. Even if just for one day. Everyone deserved that. Even goddesses. The light around HFY began to fade. Not because she was weak, but because the wish was being granted. She had no choice. The law was absolute. A proper wish must be fulfilled. And this was a proper wish. Strange, unprecedented, impossible to understand. But proper. HFY's form became solid. More real. Less like living light and more like flesh. Her feet touched the crystal floor. Really touched it. She felt weight for the first time. Actual weight. Gravity pulling at her body. She stumbled. Jiwoo caught her arm. His hand touched her skin. Solid skin, warm skin, real skin. The goddess of a billion worlds looked down at her own hands. They were shaking. She could feel them shaking. The sensation was new, strange, frightening, wonderful. She looked at Jiwoo with eyes that were still beautiful but no longer held galaxies. Just shock. Just wonder. Just the beginning of something she had never felt before. The beginning of being truly. HFY stood on legs that felt strange and weak. Her whole body felt wrong. Too heavy. Too solid, too real. She took a step and almost fell. Jiwoo kept his hand on her arm to steady her. She looked at his hand touching her. Actually touching her, not passing through divine energy, not being blocked by protective barriers. Just simple touch. Skin on skin, warm, steady, real. She pulled away from him quickly. Her pride demanded it. She was a goddess. She did not need help from mortals. But when she tried to stand alone, her knees wobbled. The floor seemed too far down. Everything felt wrong. This body, this form, it was like being trapped in something too small, something too limited. Jiwoo did not laugh at her. He did not mock her weakness. He just waited patiently. When she finally steadied herself, he asked if she was okay. His voice was gentle, concerned, like he actually cared. That confused her more than the strange body. Why would he care? She was nothing to him. Just someone granting his wishes because the law demanded it. HFY tried to access her power. She reached for the cosmic energy that always flowed through her. It was not there. For the first time in her existence, she was cut off from it. Completely cut off. The silence in her mind was deafening. She had always heard the prayers of billions, always felt the pulse of stars being born and dying, always sensed the flow of time across the universe. Now there was nothing. Just silence. Just this one small body. Just this one tiny moment. Panic rose in her chest. A new feeling. An uncomfortable feeling. Her breathing became fast. Her heart pounded. She could feel her heart pounding. That was new too. Gods did not have hearts that pounded. Gods did not breathe. Gods did not panic. But right now she was not a god. She was mortal, and mortality was terrifying. Jiwoo stepped closer. He spoke softly. He told her to breathe slowly. In and out, steady, focus on the breathing. Nothing else. Just breathe. HFY wanted to tell him she knew how to breathe. But she did not. Not really. Not like this. So she listened. She breathed slowly.
In and out.
The panic faded a little, not gone, but less. When she could think clearly again, she looked around the temple. It looked different now. Smaller, less infinite, just a large room with tall pillars and strange light. The mystery was gone. Or maybe the mystery was just hidden from mortal eyes. She could not tell anymore. Everything was filtered through this limited body. These limited senses, this limited mind. Jiwoo suggested they sit down. HFY wanted to refuse. Goddesses did not sit. They floated. They existed above such simple things. But her legs were tired. Actually tired. The feeling was strange but impossible to ignore. She sat on the floor. The cold crystal pressed against her. She could feel the cold, feel the hard surface, feel the way her body pressed down with weight. Every sensation was new. Every moment was overwhelming. Jiwoo sat beside her. Not too close. Just near enough that she did not feel alone. He began to talk. He told her about his life, about growing up on Earth, about learning to fix machines, about moving to Harmony Prime to work, about his friends Taeyang and Daeun. Simple stories, normal stories. The kind of stories she had heard 1,000,000 times before from 1,000,000 different mortals. But now they were different. Now she listened with mortal ears. Now each story felt unique, important, real. When Jiwoo talked about his first day on Harmony Prime and how scared he was, HFY understood the fear. She felt it right now. When he talked about making friends and feeling less alone, she understood that too. Loneliness. She had been lonely for so long. But she never knew it until this moment. Until she felt what connection could be like. Time passed. HFY was not sure how much time. Without her cosmic awareness, time felt different. Slower. More real. Each moment stretched out. Each second mattered. It was uncomfortable, but also beautiful in a way she could not explain. Jiwoo stood up. He said she must be hungry. Hungry, another new word, another new feeling. Her stomach felt empty, uncomfortable. She did not like it. But Jiwoo smiled and said hunger was part of being alive. It meant the body needed food, and food was one of the best parts of being mortal. He pulled something from his pocket. A small wrapped package, emergency rations, standard equipment for station workers. He opened it and broke it in half. He offered one half to Haewon. She stared at the brown bar. It looked unappetizing, boring, simple, but her stomach hurt, and Jiwoo was waiting. So she took it. The first bite was a shock. Taste, actual taste, sweet and salty, and something else she had no words for. Texture, solid and chewy and real. She chewed slowly. The flavors changed as she chewed. The food broke down. She swallowed. Felt it go down her throat. Felt it settle in her stomach. The empty feeling faded a little. That was satisfaction. That was relief. Simple. Basic. Wonderful. Jiwoo watched her with an amused expression. He asked what she thought. Haewon could not find words. She took another bite. Then another. The bar was gone too quickly. She wanted more. But Jiwoo said they should save the other half for later. She felt something new. Disappointment. Wanting something and not being able to have it. Mortals lived with this feeling all the time.
How did they stand it?
They walked through the temple together. Haewon had to learn how to walk properly. Each step required thought, balance, effort, but slowly it became easier. More natural. Jiwoo talked more. He asked her questions. What was it like being a goddess? Did she ever get lonely? What did she think about all day? Did she have any friends? The questions made her uncomfortable. She had never thought about these things before. Loneliness required connection to understand. Friendship required equals. But there were no equals to a goddess. She existed alone. That was just how it was. How it had always been. But now in this mortal body, walking beside this simple human, she felt something different. Something warm. Something she finally had a name for. Companionship. Hours passed, or maybe days. Haewon could not tell anymore. But the light in the temple began to change. Jiwoo said it was getting late. Late, another mortal concept. She felt it too. A heaviness in her body, a tiredness in her mind. Jiwoo called it fatigue. He said she needed rest, sleep. Her divine consciousness had never needed sleep. But this mortal body did. They found a quiet corner of the temple. Jiwoo sat with his back against a pillar. He told Haewon she could rest. It was safe here. He would keep watch. Keep watch. Like she was something that needed protecting. Like she was vulnerable. She was vulnerable. That should have made her angry. Instead, it made her feel safe. Haewon sat beside him. Her eyes felt heavy. Her body felt heavy. Everything felt heavy. But not bad heavy. Just tired heavy. She let her eyes close. Just for a moment. Just to rest them. But something happened when she closed her eyes. Darkness. Complete darkness. No cosmic awareness. No connection to the universe. Just darkness and silence. It should have been frightening. Instead, it was peaceful. She felt herself drifting, falling into something soft and dark. Sleep. She was falling asleep. For the first time ever. The last thing she felt was a gentle touch. Jiwoo had put his jacket over her shoulders. The warmth. The kindness. The simple gesture of care. It touched something deep inside her. Something that had never been touched before. Something that maybe did not exist until this moment. A soul, a real soul. Not divine energy, but something mortal. Something human. Something capable of feeling. When Haewon woke up, she felt different. Confused at first. Where was she? What was happening? Then she remembered. The wish, the mortal body. The day as a human. She sat up quickly. The jacket fell from her shoulders. She looked around. Jiwoo was still there. Still keeping watch like he promised. He smiled at her. Asked if she slept well. Haewon did not know how to answer. She had experienced something beyond her understanding. Dreams, she had dreams. Strange images and feelings that made no sense. Memories mixed with impossible things. Fears and hopes tangled together. It was chaotic. Illogical. Inefficient. And somehow beautiful. She tried to explain it to Jiwoo. He just laughed and said that was normal. Dreams were always strange. That was what made them interesting. They spent more time together. Talking, walking, sharing the last of the ration bar, experiencing silence, experiencing sound. Every moment taught Heywan something new. She learned that mortals did not just survive their limitations. They thrived because of them. They created beauty because time was short. They formed connections because they were not self-sufficient. They found meaning because nothing lasted forever. She also learned about Jiwoo. His kindness was not weakness. His questions were not ignorance. His simple life was not meaningless. He had chosen to use his first wish for her, not because he was stupid, but because he understood something she never could from her divine throne. Everyone deserved to feel alive, even goddesses, especially goddesses. As the day drew to an end, Heywan felt the change coming. Her divine power was returning. The mortal body was fading. She would become a goddess again, eternal, powerful, alone, but different, forever different. Because now she knew what it felt like to be real, to be vulnerable, to be connected to someone else. To matter not because of power, but because of presence. The light around her began to glow. Her body became less solid, less real, more divine. She looked at Jiwoo one last time with mortal eyes. She tried to speak, to thank him, to tell him what this meant. But words were not enough. Mortal words could never keep. Jiwoo opened his eyes. Bright lights. White ceiling. Familiar sounds. He was back on Harmony Prime, back in the medical bay. His head hurt. His body ached. But he was alive. The station was alive. Everything was stable again. The emergency was over. A face appeared above him. Taeyang, his best friend. Taeyang looked worried, tired, relieved. He grabbed Jiwoo's shoulder and squeezed hard. Too hard, Jiwoo winced. Taeyang immediately let go and apologized. But he was smiling. A big genuine smile. The kind that said everything without words. Another person pushed into view. Da-un. She was a scientist. A xenoanthropologist. She studied alien cultures and ancient histories. She looked at Jiwoo with sharp, curious eyes. Eyes that saw too much. She asked him what happened. Where did he go? How long was he gone? What did he see? Jiwoo tried to sit up. The room spun. Taeyang helped him. Slowly. Carefully. When the world stopped moving, Jiwoo looked at his friends. He tried to explain. But how could he? How could he tell them he met a goddess? That he made a wish? That he spent a day teaching divinity what it meant to be human? It sounded crazy, impossible, like a dream, but it was not a dream. His hand still remembered the feeling of Heywan's arm when she stumbled. His ears still remembered her voice learning to laugh. His heart still remembered the look in her eyes when she thanked him. All of it was real. Too real to be a dream. Too important to forget. He told them everything. Every detail. The artifact, the temple, Heywan, the wish, all of it. Taeyang listened with wide eyes. He believed immediately. That was just how Taeyang was, open, trusting, happy to accept the impossible. Doyun was different. She listened carefully, asked questions, made notes. She was trying to understand, to fit it into what she knew about the universe. When Jiwoo finished, Da-un was quiet for a long time. Then she pulled out her data pad. She showed him something. An old text, ancient writing from a civilization that died out millions of years ago. The text talked about a goddess, a being of infinite power who granted wishes, but there was more. Warnings, prophecies, predictions about what would happen if the goddess ever changed. The words were hard to read, old, faded, but the meaning was clear. Change in the goddess meant change in the universe. Balance would shift. Old enemies would wake. New possibilities would open. Some good, some very bad. Diane looked at Jiwoo seriously. She asked if he understood what he had done. He had not just changed Heywan. He had changed everything. Jiwoo felt cold. He had not thought about consequences. He just wanted to help, to give something to someone who had nothing. But now he saw the bigger picture. His simple wish had ripples, waves spreading across the galaxy, touching things he could not see, affecting things he did not understand. Days passed. Life on Harmony Prime returned to normal. Jiwoo went back to work, fixed machines, replaced wires, simple tasks, normal tasks, but nothing felt normal anymore. He kept seeing things from the corner of his eye. Shadows that moved wrong, lights that flickered with patterns, and sometimes, just sometimes, he felt a presence, warm, familiar, watching him from somewhere far away. Then the visitors arrived. A ship docked at Harmony Prime, sleek, beautiful, covered in symbols that glowed with inner light. The crew was not human. They were Veldoran, an old species, powerful, advanced. They had been traveling the stars when humans were still learning to make fire. The leader of the Veldoran delegation was named Kyung-mi. She was tall, elegant, her skin had a faint blue tint. Her eyes were large and dark. She moved with grace and purpose. She asked to meet Jiwoo, specifically him by name. That was not normal. That was not good. They met in a private conference room. Kyung-mi sat across from Jiwoo. Her expression was hard to read. Not angry, not friendly, just focused, intense. She asked him directly, "Did he meet Haewon? Did he make a wish? What did he wish for?" Jiwoo saw no point in lying. He told the truth. Kyung-mi listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet. Then she spoke. Her people worshipped Haewon, had worshipped her for thousands of generations. They prayed to her, built temples for her, organized their entire society around her teachings. And 3 days ago, something changed. The connection they felt to their goddess shifted, became different, warmer, more personal, less distant. Some Veldoran saw this as a blessing, a sign of favor. But others were afraid. Change meant uncertainty. Uncertainty meant danger. They did not know if this new Haewon was friend or enemy. They did not know if she still cared about them, or if she had moved beyond them entirely. That fear brought Kyung-mi here, to find answers. To understand what happened, Jiwoo tried to explain. He told Kyung-mi that Haewon had not abandoned anyone. She had just learned something new. Something important. How to connect. How to feel. How to care in a way she never could before. That should make her a better goddess. Not worse, right? Kyung-mi did not look convinced. But she did not look hostile either. She said she would need to see proof. Evidence. Something to show her people that humans were not a threat to their goddess. Jiwoo did not know what kind of proof he could give. But before he could say anything, the lights in the room flickered. Once, twice. Then went dark completely. Emergency lights kicked in. Red, dim, casting shadows everywhere. An alarm sounded. Not the station alarm. Something else. Something that made Kyung-mi jump to her feet. Her hand went to a device on her belt. She spoke rapidly in her own language. Then she turned to Jiwoo. Her face was pale. Actually pale. That was bad. That was very bad. She told him that one of Haewon's temples had been attacked. Not just damaged, destroyed, completely destroyed. The temple was on the edge of the galaxy, far from any populated world. But it was important, ancient, sacred. And now it was gone. Reduced to dust and debris. Jiwoo felt his stomach drop. Who would attack a goddess's temple? Who could? Who would be that stupid or that powerful? Kyung-mi had an answer. A name whispered with fear and respect. Rakthos, the Void Keeper. An ancient being. As old as Haewon. As powerful as Haewon, but opposite in every way. Where Haewon brought order and light, Rakthos brought chaos and darkness. Where Haewon created, Rakthos destroyed. The two cosmic beings had fought before, long ago, before most current civilizations existed. They fought to a stalemate. Neither could defeat the other. So they agreed to stay separate, to rule their own parts of existence, to never interfere in each other's domains. That agreement had held for eons. Until now, Kyung-mi explained quickly. Rakthos must have sensed the change in Haewon. Her moment of vulnerability, her brief time as a mortal, that tiny gap in her power. To beings like them, even a moment was enough. Enough to notice. Enough to act. Enough to attack. The attack on the temple was a message. A challenge. Rakthos was saying that Haewon was weak now, compromised, changed, and change was weakness. At least to him. He believed in absolute order. Perfect control. Complete certainty. Anything that deviated from that was corruption. Haewon learning to feel. Learning to care. That was the ultimate corruption in his eyes. Jiwoo's mind raced. This was his fault. His wish caused this. He made Haewon vulnerable. He exposed her to danger. And now an ancient evil was taking advantage. People might die. Worlds might burn. All because he wanted to teach a goddess about being human. He stood up quickly. Asked Kyung-mi what they could do. How they could help. How they could stop this. Kyung-mi looked at him with something like respect. Most humans would run, hide, pretend this was not their problem. But Jiwoo wanted to help. Wanted to fix what he broke. That was admirable, stupid, but admirable. She told him that mortals could not fight in battles between gods. It was impossible, suicide, meaningless. Jiwoo disagreed. His first wish had changed everything. Maybe mortals could make a difference. Maybe that was the point. Maybe HFY needed help precisely because she was no longer purely divine. She was something new, something mixed, something that combined power with understanding. And maybe that required a new kind of solution, one that only mortals could provide. Before Kyung-mi could respond, the air in the room changed. It became heavy, thick, hard to breathe. A presence filled the space. Massive, overwhelming, divine. And then she was there. HFY, standing in the center of the room. Not fully solid, not fully light. Something in between. Her eyes found Jiwoo immediately. There was fear in those eyes, real fear, something he never expected to see in a goddess. She spoke. Her voice shook the walls. She told them that Rakthos was not just attacking temples. He was attacking the fabric of reality itself, trying to tear holes between dimensions, trying to collapse worlds into each other, create chaos on a cosmic scale. And she could not stop him alone. Not anymore, because now she hesitated. Now she doubted. Now she cared about the consequences of her actions. Before, she would have fought without thinking, used pure power. Consequences be damned. But Jiwoo's wish changed her, made her consider the cost, made her value life, made her careful. And in battles between gods, careful meant slow, slow meant vulnerable, vulnerable meant defeat. HFY looked at Jiwoo with those galaxy eyes. She asked him directly. He still had 2 wishes left. One of them needed to be used now, used to fix what his first wish broke. He could wish her back to normal. Remove the light faded. HFY stood in the center of the room. She looked the same, but also completely different. Her presence still filled the space, still pressed down with divine weight. But now there was something else. Something softer, something human mixed with the cosmic power. Her eyes still held galaxies, but they also held understanding, compassion, balance. She looked at her hands, turned them slowly, feeling the power that flowed through them. It was different now. Not weaker, not stronger, just different, more controlled, more purposeful. Before, her power was like a flood, overwhelming, unstoppable, destructive even when trying to help. Now it was like a river, still powerful, still capable of great force, but directed, controlled, useful. Kyung-mi dropped to one knee. It was automatic, instinctive, the response of someone who had worshipped this being her entire life. But HFY raised a hand, gently. She asked Kyung-mi to stand. They were equals now, or at least closer to equals than before. The Veldoran looked confused, uncertain. But she stood. Old habits were hard to break. HFY turned to Jiwoo. Her expression was complex, grateful, amazed, frightened, all at once. She told him that he had done something impossible again. Changed the unchangeable, improved the perfect. She felt whole in a way she never had before. Complete, balanced between power and wisdom, between action and consideration, between divine certainty and mortal doubt. But there was no time to explore this new state. Rakthos was still moving, still attacking, still tearing at the fabric of reality. She could feel his presence now, clearer than before. Her new balance gave her better perception. She understood his movements, his intentions, his weaknesses, things she missed before because she only saw through divine eyes. Now she saw through mortal eyes too, and that made all the difference. HFY explained the situation quickly. Rakthos was not just attacking randomly. He had a plan, a strategy. He was targeting specific points across the galaxy, places where reality was thin, where dimensions touched, where the barriers between worlds were weak. If he destroyed enough of these points, he could create a cascade, a chain reaction. Reality itself would collapse. Multiple dimensions would crash together. Chaos would consume everything. Dayun asked why he would do that. Why would anyone want to destroy reality? HFY's answer was simple and terrifying. Rakthos believed that reality was flawed, imperfect. The existence of free will created too many variables, too much unpredictability, too much chaos. He wanted to rebuild everything, create a new universe based on pure order. Complete control. Perfect certainty. No free will. No choice, no chaos. Just eternal, unchanging order. Taeyang said that sounded horrible. Haewon agreed. It was horrible. But to Rakthos it was paradise. The perfect universe. And he had been planning this for eons. Waiting for any sign of weakness in Haewon. Any opportunity to act. Jiwoo's wish gave him that opportunity. But it also gave Haewon something new. Something that might be enough to stop him. But she could not do it alone. That was the problem. Fighting Rakthos required more than power. It required strategy, creativity, adaptability, things that mortals excelled at. Things that gods were terrible at. So she needed help. Mortal help, human help, Jiwoo's help. Jiwoo did not hesitate. He agreed immediately. So did Taeyang and Da-yoon. They were in this together. They would help however they could. Kyungmi also offered her assistance. Her people had ships, weapons, knowledge, resources. If the goddess needed help, the Veldoran would provide it. All of it, Haewon brought them all to her temple. The same temple where Jiwoo first arrived. But now he arrived with friends. With allies. The crystal floor felt familiar under his feet. The impossible pillars looked less impossible. Or maybe he was just getting used to impossible things. The goddess began their training immediately. She taught them how to perceive higher dimensions. How to see the spaces between spaces. How to sense the flow of cosmic energy. It was difficult, painful. Human brains were not designed for this kind of perception. But slowly, with Haewon's guidance, they learned. They could not see everything she saw. But they could see enough. Enough to help. Enough to make a difference. Taeyang proved especially talented. His engineer mind understood the patterns, the structures, the mathematical relationships that governed higher dimensional space. He began designing devices, tools that could channel divine energy through technological means. Ways to amplify Haewon's power, ways to disrupt Rakthos's attacks, ways to stabilize reality where it was torn. Daeun focused on research. She dug through ancient texts, old prophecies, forgotten histories. She found references to previous conflicts between cosmic beings, patterns in how they fought, weaknesses in how they thought. Rakthos was old, ancient, but age meant patterns, habits, predictability, and predictability could be exploited. Jiwoo worked directly with Haewon. She taught him about balance, about how power without wisdom was destruction, about how wisdom without power was useless, about how the two together created something greater than either alone. He was not learning to be a god. He was learning to be human in a more complete way, to understand his limitations and his strengths, to know when to act and when to think, when to push forward and when to step back. Meanwhile, Kyungmi gathered her fleet. Ships from across the galaxy answered her call. Veldoran, human, dozens of other species, all united by one thing. They all worshipped or respected Haewon. They all wanted to protect her. Protect the balance she represented. Protect the freedom she allowed. Ships gathered around the temple. Thousands of them. A fleet unlike anything the galaxy had seen in generations. Days passed. Or maybe weeks. Time was strange in the temple. It flowed differently here. Faster in some places, slower in others. But eventually they were ready. As ready as they would ever be. Haewon could sense Rakthos moving toward his final targets. 3 critical points in space. If he destroyed all 3, the cascade would begin. Reality would collapse. There would be no stopping it. The plan was simple. Haewon would face Rakthos directly, keep him occupied, prevent him from completing his ritual. Meanwhile, the mortal forces would protect the 3 critical points, hold them, stabilize them, prevent Rakthos's servants from destroying them. It was a defensive strategy, not glamorous, but effective. If they could hold long enough, Rakthos would be forced to retreat, to wait another 1,000 years for another opportunity. But there was a problem. Tyson found it buried in an old text, a warning from a civilization that witnessed a battle between cosmic beings. When gods fight, reality itself becomes unstable. The barriers between dimensions weaken. Strange things happen. Impossible things. And mortals caught in the crossfire rarely survive. Even being near such a battle could kill, could drive someone insane, could erase them from existence entirely. Jiwoo understood the risk. They all did. But they had no choice. This was their fault, their responsibility. His wish started this. His wish would help end it. one way or another. He looked at Heywan. She looked back. In her eyes he saw concern. Real concern. She did not want him to die. That was new. Before his wishes she would not have cared. Mortals died all the time. It was meaningless to a goddess. But now it meant something. He meant something. And that made this harder. Heywan offered him protection. A blessing. She could wrap him in divine energy. Shield him from the worst effects of the battle. It would not make him invincible. But it would keep him alive, probably, maybe. She could not promise more than that. Not against something like Rakthos. Jiwoo accepted. The blessing felt like warm sunlight. It soaked into his skin, his bones, his soul. It was comforting, protective, like being wrapped in invisible armor. Taeyang and Da-eun received the same blessing. So did Kyungmi. So did the commanders of every ship in the fleet. It was all Heywan could do. All the protection she could give without weakening herself for the coming battle. The moment arrived. They could feel it. A change in the air, a tension in space itself. Rakthos was making his move. Heywan closed her eyes, centered herself. When she opened them again, they were different. Harder, more focused. She was ready. The balanced goddess, power and wisdom together. Prepared for the fight of her existence, she told them all to be careful. To trust each other. To remember that courage was not the absence of fear. It was action despite fear. She looked at Jiwoo one more time. Something passed between them. Understanding. Connection. The bond formed over one impossible day, now tested in one impossible battle. Then she was gone. Vanished. Transported to the battlefield where Rakthos waited. The fleet received their orders. They split into 3 groups, each heading to one of the critical points. Jiwoo was assigned to the closest point, a region of space called the Fold, where dimensions naturally bent, where reality was thinnest, where the danger was greatest. Their ship jumped through hyperspace. The journey took hours, but it felt like seconds. Jiwoo sat in the observation deck, watching stars blur past, thinking about everything that brought him here. A simple repair job, a hidden artifact, a goddess who needed to feel human, and now this, a battle that would determine the fate of reality itself. Taeyang sat beside him. Neither of them spoke. Words were not necessary. They had been friends for years. They understood each other without speaking. Whatever happened next, Jiwoo's plan was simple. Maybe too simple. Taeyang had designed devices that could channel divine energy. What if they reversed the flow? What if instead of amplifying Heywan's power, they drew power from the Fold itself? Used the dimensional instability as a weapon? Turn the weakness into strength? Taeyang said it was possible. Theoretically. But the device was untested, unproven. It could work. Or it could explode. Or it could tear open a bigger hole in reality. Or it could do nothing at all. Too many variables. Too much risk. But also their best chance. Their only chance. They worked fast. Modified the device. Recalibrated the energy channels. Adjusted the dimensional harmonics. Technical terms that Jiwoo barely understood. But Taeyang understood. That was enough. Daeun calculated the optimal deployment point, where to place the device for maximum effect. Minimum risk, or at least less risk. There was no minimum risk in what they were attempting. Kyungmi volunteered her ship to deliver the device. It was smaller than the others, faster, more maneuverable, better chance of getting through the void creatures, better chance of reaching the deployment point, better chance of success. Still not a good chance, but better. Jiwoo said he would go with her. Someone needed to activate the device manually. Someone who understood what they were trying to do. Someone willing to take the risk. Taeyang started to argue. Started to say he should go instead. He designed the device. He understood it better. But Jiwoo shook his head. Taeyang was needed here, to coordinate the fleet, to make adjustments, to adapt if the plan failed. Jiwoo was just a repair technician, expendable, replaceable. Daeun grabbed his arm, told him he was not expendable, not replaceable. He was their friend. He mattered. Jiwoo smiled at her, a sad smile. He said that was exactly why he had to go. Because he mattered. Because this mattered. Because some things were worth the risk. Worth the sacrifice. Worth everything. They prepared quickly. No time for long goodbyes. No time for second thoughts. Kyungmi's ship undocked. Pulled away from the fleet. Accelerated toward the Fold. Toward the mass of void creatures. Toward the heart of the chaos. Jiwoo sat in the co-pilot seat. The device was secured behind him, humming with barely contained energy, ready to either save them or destroy them, possibly both. The void creatures noticed them immediately, changed direction, swarmed toward the small ship. Kyungmi's hands moved across the controls, fast, precise, confident. She had flown combat missions before. Many times, but never against things like this. Things that should not exist, things that violated the laws of physics just by being present. The ship weaved through attacks, energy blasts that bent space, weapons that fired from multiple dimensions at once, projectiles that existed and did not exist simultaneously. Kyungmi avoided them with skill and luck. Mostly luck. The ship was hit. Shields flickered. Alarms screamed. But they kept going, kept pushing forward, getting closer to the deployment point, closer to success or death. Behind them, the fleet provided cover fire, drawing attention, creating openings, sacrificing themselves to give Kyungmi's ship a chance. Jiwoo watched ships explode on the tactical display. Each explosion was a life, a person, someone with friends, family, dreams, all gone in flashes of light, all sacrificed for this desperate plan. The weight of it pressed down on him, heavy, crushing. But he could not think about that now, could not afford to feel the guilt, not yet. Not until the job was done. Meanwhile, in a space beyond space, HFY fought. The battle was beyond description, beyond comprehension. Two cosmic beings clashing with power that made stars look like candles. She used her new balance well, mixed divine strength with mortal strategy, attacked from unexpected angles, adapted to Rakthos's moves, surprised him repeatedly. But Rakthos was old, experienced, powerful. He learned her new patterns, adjusted his tactics, pressed harder. The battle turned slowly, inevitably. HFY was stronger than before, but Rakthos had not changed, had not weakened. And in a contest of pure power, unchanged divine force had an advantage over balanced divine wisdom. Power won battles, wisdom won wars. But this was a battle, and HFY was losing. She felt the shift, the moment when defeat became certain, not immediate, but inevitable. Unless something changed, unless the mortals succeeded. She reached out with her awareness, found Jiwoo's presence, small, fragile, but determined, pushing through danger, risking everything. For her, for everyone. She felt something twist in her chest. Not physical, emotional fear, not for herself, for him, for the mortal who taught her what it meant to care. Kyungmi's ship reached the deployment point. Right in the center of the fold, where space twisted most severely, where dimensions bled together, where reality was held together by the thinnest threads. Jiwoo unbuckled from his seat, grabbed the device. It was heavy, warm, vibrating with energy. He moved to the airlock, prepared to deploy it manually, into the void, into the chaos, into the space between spaces. Kyungmi opened the outer door. Space rushed out. Air screamed. Pressure dropped. Jiwoo's suit protected him, but barely. The environment outside was hostile in ways normal space was not. Dimensional energies tore at the fabric of his existence. The blessing from HFY glowed brighter, shielding him, keeping him alive, but he could feel it weakening, straining. It would not last much longer. He pushed the device out, watched it tumble into the fold. Tae-Yang had programmed it to activate automatically, but the signal was not transmitting. Something was wrong. The dimensional interference, the chaos. The device was not activating. It was just floating, useless, dead. All of this for nothing. Jiwoo made a decision, a stupid decision, a brave decision, a necessary decision. He jumped, out of the airlock, into the void, into the space that should have killed him instantly. HFY's blessing flared, burned brighter than stars, held him together, kept him alive. Gave him seconds, maybe, possibly, hopefully. He reached the device. His hands found the manual activation panel. He entered the code, fingers fumbling, clumsy in the heavy suit, in the dimensional chaos, in the face of death. The panel lit up, green, active, working. The device began its sequence, drawing energy from the fold, channeling it, focusing it, building toward discharge, but something went wrong. The energy flow was too strong, too fast, too much. The device was overloading. It would explode, soon, very soon, and Jiwoo was right next to it. Too close to escape, too far from the ship, too late to do anything except wait for death. He felt surprisingly calm. Was this acceptance? Or just shock? Or maybe the dimensional energies affecting his mind? He could not tell. Everything seemed distant, unreal, like a dream. A bad dream, but also strangely peaceful. At least he tried. At least he did something. At least his life meant something in the end. Then he felt something. A presence. Massive. Overwhelming. Familiar. HFY. She was here. Not physically. But her awareness. Her attention. Her focus. All of it directed at him. At this moment. At this choice. She could save him. He knew she could. But doing so would mean abandoning her fight with Rakthos. Would mean losing. Would mean letting reality collapse. She could save him or save everything. Not both. Jiwoo screamed into the void. Told her to stay. To keep fighting. To let him go. He was one life. One insignificant mortal. Not worth the cost. Not worth the sacrifice. Not worth losing everything. He begged her to stay, to fight. To win. Please, please stay. But HFY hesitated. For the first time in her long existence, she hesitated in battle. Because she cared. Because Jiwoo mattered. Because losing him would hurt in a way she never knew was possible. The mortal who taught her to feel. The mortal who gave instead of taking. The mortal who saw her as more than a tool for wishes. She could not let him die. Could not abandon him. Even if it meant losing everything. Rakthos sensed her hesitation. Pressed his advantage. Struck hard. Struck true. Divine energy tore through HFY's defenses. She staggered, weakened, hurt, actually hurt. Pain was new to her, shocking, overwhelming, but not as painful as the choice. Save one mortal or save all mortals. Love or duty. Heart or mind. Goddess or friend. The device reached critical mass. Energy exploded outward. Not destructive energy. Stabilizing energy. It spread through the fold like a wave. Solidifying reality. Strengthening dimensions. Pushing back the void. The void creatures screamed. Silent screams in silent space. They dissolved, faded, disappeared, unable to exist in stable reality. The plan worked. Jiwoo's sacrifice worked. But at what cost? Jiwoo felt the explosion, felt the energy rip through him, felt his body come apart, cell by cell, atom by atom, erased from existence, but not painfully, almost gently, like falling asleep, like drifting away, like letting go. His last thought was not of fear, not of regret, but of satisfaction. He did it, he helped, he mattered. That was enough. That was everything. HFY felt him die, felt his presence vanish from existence. The pain was worse than Rakthos's attack, worse than any wound, worse than anything she ever experienced. Something inside her broke. Not her power, not her body, but something deeper, something mortal, something human. Her heart, her newly formed, barely understood, completely precious heart broke. She screamed, a sound that shook dimensions. HFY visited him regularly, not as a 1 year passed since the battle, 1 year since Jiwoo died and came back, 1 year since reality almost collapsed. The galaxy settled into new patterns. Better patterns. Patterns built on connection instead of isolation, on understanding instead of assumption, on balance instead of extremes. Harmony Prime was busier than ever. Ships came and went constantly. Diplomats, traders, scientists, tourists, people from hundreds of worlds, all wanting to see the place where everything changed, where a mortal taught a goddess, where humanity proved their worth, where impossible things became possible through simple kindness. Jiwoo still worked as a repair technician, still fixed machines, still replaced wires, still did his job, but now people recognized him, pointed at him, whispered. Some asked for autographs, some wanted pictures, some just wanted to shake his hand, touch the person who changed everything. He was polite, patient, but uncomfortable with the attention. He was just a technician, nothing special. He kept telling people that. Nobody believed him. Taeyang had changed more visibly. He wore better clothes now, spoke at conferences, taught classes on divine technology integration. His devices were used across the galaxy, stabilizing dimensional rifts, channeling cosmic energy safely, bridging the gap between mortal technology and divine power. He was famous, important, successful, but still the same person. Still Jiwoo's best friend. Still someone who would drop everything to help with a repair job. Dayun published 3 books,
All bestsellers.
all about the nature of cosmic consciousness, the relationship between mortals and gods, the importance of balance, the value of limitation. She traveled constantly, giving lectures, attending symposiums, meeting with scholars from every known civilization. But she visited Harmony Prime regularly, brought stories, shared discoveries, kept the connection alive because connections mattered. Always, Kyung-mi became one of the most influential people in the galaxy. Ambassador, mediator, bridge between species. She solved disputes, prevented wars, built alliances, all while maintaining her faith in Haewon. But her faith was different now. Not worship, respect, admiration, love, the kind between equals, between friends. Because Haewon taught her people that gods were not meant to be worshipped from a distance, but understood up close, partnered with, helped. The Veldoran temples changed, all of them. They were no longer just places of worship. They became community centers, meeting places, schools, hospitals, places where people helped each other, served each other, connected with each other. That was what Haewon wanted. What she guided them toward: service instead of worship, action instead of prayer, connection instead of separation. Other civilizations followed the example, slowly, carefully, but definitely. The old ways were changing. The relationship between mortals and gods was evolving, becoming partnership, cooperation, mutual growth. It was not perfect. Change never was, but it was better, healthier, more sustainable, more human. Even when it was not humans doing it. Haewon visited Jiwoo every week. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but regularly, consistently. She appeared in his apartment,
In the observation deck.
in the repair bay. Wherever he was, she would materialize, sit with him, talk with him, learn from him, teach him, share with him. They talked about everything and nothing. Philosophy and maintenance, cosmic mysteries and lunch choices. Everything was interesting when shared with someone who cared. She was different now. More solid, more real, more present. Her form stabilized somewhere between divine and mortal. She could still access her full power when needed. Still reshape reality when necessary. Still perform miracles when called for. But she chose not to. Most of the time. Chose to exist as something closer to mortal. Closer to human. Closer to alive. She learned to cook. Sort of. Her food was terrible, but she kept trying. Jiwoo ate it anyway, smiled through the awful taste, told her it was getting better. She knew he was lying, but appreciated the kindness. That was friendship. Accepting someone's terrible cooking because the effort mattered more than the result. She learned about human customs, birthdays, holidays, celebrations. She gave Jiwoo gifts for his birthday. Strange gifts. A flower from a planet that did not exist anymore. A stone that sang when moonlight touched it. A piece of the first star ever born. Impossible gifts. Precious gifts. Meaningless to anyone else. Priceless to him. Because they came from her. Because they represented thought. Care. The desire to make someone happy. Jiwoo taught her about humor. Real humor. Not cosmic jokes that took centuries to understand, but simple, immediate human humor. Puns, wordplay, situational comedy. She laughed more now. A real laugh, full, genuine, unguarded. The sound filled whatever room she was in, made everything brighter, warmer, better. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Haewon appeared in the observation deck. Jiwoo was already there, waiting. Not because they planned it, but because they both remembered. Both wanted to mark the occasion. Both understood how important it was. The day that changed everything. For both of them. Forever. They stood side by side, looking out at the stars. The view was familiar now, comforting but still beautiful. Still infinite. Still full of possibility. The universe was vast, incomprehensible, overwhelming. But in this moment it felt small, manageable, safe. Because they were together. Jiwoo spoke first. He asked about Rekthos. What happened to him? Was he still a threat? Would he attack again? Haewon was quiet for a moment, then answered. Rekthos was still in the void. Still alone, but thinking, processing, changing. Slowly. Very slowly, but definitely. The seed Jiwoo planted was growing, Understanding was spreading. Maybe one day the Void Keeper would emerge different, better, ready to join existence instead of controlling it. Maybe Jiwoo hoped so. Everyone deserved a chance. Even ancient cosmic entities bent on destroying free will. Everyone could change. Everyone could grow. Everyone could learn. That was the most human belief. The most hopeful belief. The belief that made everything else possible. Haewon asked him a question. The question she had been wanting to ask for months but feared the answer. Would he do it again? Knowing everything that happened, knowing the cost, knowing the danger, knowing he died, would he still make the same wishes? Jiwoo did not hesitate. Yes, absolutely, without question, because those wishes created something beautiful, something important, something that made the universe better. They created friendship, understanding, balance. They showed that even gods needed connection, that even mortals could make a difference. That caring was the most powerful force in existence. More powerful than divine energy, more powerful than cosmic might, more powerful than anything. Haewon smiled. A warm smile. A grateful smile. A smile that held galaxies but also humanity. She told him that she would do it again too. Experience mortality, feel vulnerability, learn to care, even knowing the pain, even knowing the fear, even knowing the cost, because the alternative was worse, being powerful but empty, strong but alone, eternal but meaningless. She would take mortality over that any day, even if just for one day they talked about the future. What came next, what they hoped for, what they feared. Jiwoo wanted to keep fixing things, keep helping people, keep making small differences. That was enough for him. That was everything. Haewon wanted to keep learning. Keep growing. Keep connecting. She had billions of years ahead of her. Now she knew how to use them. Not ruling, participating, not commanding, cooperating, not judging, understanding. A small ship docked at Harmony Prime. New arrivals, young, excited, nervous. They were explorers, scientists, dreamers looking for adventure, looking for meaning, looking for their place in the vast universe. Jiwoo watched them through the window. Remembered being like that, young, uncertain, not knowing how much his life would change, how much he would matter, how much everyone mattered. He wondered what adventures waited for them, what changes they would create, what differences they would make. Everyone had potential. Everyone could change the universe, not through power, not through might, but through simple choices, simple kindness, simple willingness to see others, to understand others, to connect with others. Haewon sensed his thoughts. She often could now. Their connection was deep, strong, permanent. She told him that humanity was special, not because of power, not because of technology, but because of perspective. Because humans understood limitation, embraced vulnerability, celebrated connection. They taught the galaxy something important, something cosmic beings spent eons missing, that the most powerful force was not control, was not order, was not certainty, but love. Simple, complicated, impossible, beautiful love. Jiwoo thought about that word, love. Was that what this was? What he felt for Haewon? What she felt for him? Maybe, probably, but not romantic love. Something else, something deeper. Something that transcended physical attraction, transcended need, transcended everything except pure genuine caring, soul-deep friendship. The kind that lasted forever, the kind that changed existence, the kind that made life worth living. Stars continued to burn. Time continued to flow. The universe continued its endless dance, birth, death, change, growth, the eternal cycle. But now in one small corner of existence, two beings stood together, not goddess and worshipper. That made Rakthos pause. That carried grief and rage and loss and love all mixed to... The tear touched the floor and light exploded. Not destructive light, not painful light, but warm, soft, comforting. The light spread across the airlock, gathered, concentrated, formed a shape, a human shape. The light faded and Jiwoo stood there, whole, alive, breathing. He blinked, confused, disoriented. The last thing he remembered was dying, being erased, dissolving into energy. But now he was here, standing, living, impossible. He looked down at his hands. They were solid, real. He touched his chest, felt his heart beating, strong, steady, alive. Hei-Wan stared at him. Her eyes were wide, shocked. She had not meant to do that. Had not intended to bring him back. It should not even be possible. Death was absolute, final. Even gods could not reverse it. Not truly. But her tear, her grief, her love, combined with her divine power, combined with her human heart, it created something new, something that should not exist. A miracle. Jiwoo saw her, understood immediately. She brought him back somehow, against all laws, against all logic, against everything. He stepped toward her, slowly, carefully, like approaching something fragile, something precious, something that might break if he moved too fast. They stood facing each other, goddess and mortal, divine and human, power and vulnerability. For a long moment, neither spoke. Words seemed insufficient. Too small, too simple. How could words capture what just happened, what they both felt? What existed between them? Finally, Jiwoo spoke. His voice was soft, gentle. He asked how she did it, how she brought him back. Hei-Wan shook her head. She did not know, did not understand. It just happened. Like breathing, like instinct, she needed him to live. So he lived. Simple, impossible, true. But there was a problem, a complication. By bringing him back, Hei-Wan had violated fundamental laws. Death was supposed to be final, absolute, unchangeable. She had changed it, broken it, rewritten reality itself. That came with consequences, costs, prices that would need to be paid. Jiwoo still had one wish left. His third wish, the most powerful, the most dangerous, the one that could not be undone. Hei-Wan looked at him seriously. She told him that he needed to use it now, needed to wish carefully, because bringing him back created an imbalance, a debt, a hole in the cosmic order. The third wish could fix it, or make it worse. Everything depended on what he wished for. Jiwoo thought carefully. He understood the weight of this moment. The responsibility. His first wish changed Hei-Wan. His second wish balanced her. What should the third wish do? What could it do? What should it do? The answer came slowly. Built piece by piece, understanding by understanding. He thought about everything that happened. Everything he learned. Hei-Wan learned to feel through experiencing mortality. She learned to balance power with wisdom through integration. But Rakthos still existed, still believed in absolute order, still saw emotion as weakness, still considered connection as corruption. And one day he might return, might attack again, might threaten everything. The solution was not to destroy Rakthos. Violence never really solved anything. It just delayed problems, created new ones. No. The solution was something else, something better, something that honored what Jiwoo learned, what Hei-Wan learned, what they all learned together. Jiwoo made his third wish, his final wish, the wish that would define everything that came after. He wished for Rakthos to experience what Hei-Wan experienced. One moment of genuine connection, one instant of understanding, one chance to feel what it meant to be part of something instead of separate from everything. Hei-Wan gasped. The wish was impossible. Her power could not reach another cosmic being directly, could not force change on an equal. That was the law. That was the rule. That was how existence worked. But the wish was proper, valid, already being granted. Because Jiwoo found a loophole, a way around the rule. The wish did not force Rakthos to change. It offered him a choice, a gift, a bridge. The same bridge Jiwoo built to Hei-Wan, built with sacrifice, built with understanding, built with the willingness to give instead of take. The wish created a connection. Rakthos could accept it or reject it. The choice was his, free will. The most important thing, the thing he tried to destroy, the connection formed, stretched across space, across dimensions, across the vast distance between gods. It touched Rakthos in his void, showed him something, a memory. Not Rakthos's memory, Jiwoo's memory. The moment when Jiwoo made his first wish, when he chose to give instead of take, when he saw a lonely goddess and offered her something precious, a day, a chance, a connection. Rakthos felt it, actually felt it. The emotion, the intention, the pure, simple kindness. He had never felt anything like it. Had never experienced genuine altruism, had never understood what it meant to give without expecting return. It was foreign, strange, uncomfortable, but also beautiful. In a way he could not explain. In a way he did not want to explain. In a way he just wanted to feel. For one impossible moment, the Void Keeper understood. Connection was not weakness. Emotion was not corruption. Free will was not chaos. These things were strength. The greatest strength. The strength to choose, to grow, to change, to become something more than what you were. The moment passed. The connection faded, but the memory remained. The understanding stayed. Rakthos withdrew deeper into the void, not to plan another attack, but to think, to process, to consider the possibility that he might be wrong, that absolute order might not be the answer, that perhaps, just perhaps, there was value in chaos, in choice, in the beautiful, messy, unpredictable nature of existence. The wish completed. The cosmic debt balanced. The imbalance corrected. Jiwoo's resurrection was no longer a violation. It was payment, cost, sacrifice transformed into gift, death transformed into life. The universe accepted it. Reality stabilized. Everything settled into new patterns, better patterns, patterns that included the possibility of change, of growth, of hope. Haewon looked at Jiwoo with wonder, with gratitude, with something deeper, something she was still learning to name. He used his final wish not for himself, not for power, not for wealth, not for anything selfish. He used it to offer understanding to an enemy, to build bridges instead of walls, to create possibility instead of certainty. That was so perfectly, impossibly, beautifully human. The formal bond was broken, the 3 wishes granted. The ritual complete. Jiwoo was no longer bound to Haewon by cosmic law. But something else remained. Something stronger than law. Something built through shared experience, through sacrifice, through understanding, through caring, friendship. That was the word. They were friends. Goddess and mortal, friends. Kyungmi entered the airlock. She saw Jiwoo alive, saw Haewon standing with tears still on her face, understood immediately what happened, what it meant, what it signified. She dropped to one knee again, but this time not from obligation, from respect, from genuine reverence, not for power, but for sacrifice, for wisdom, for the kind of courage that changed everything. Taeyang and Dayun arrived shortly after. They saw Jiwoo and rushed forward, grabbed him, hugged him, shouted questions. How was he alive? What happened? Was he okay? Jiwoo laughed. Actually laughed. A real laugh. A happy laugh. The laugh of someone who died and came back, who saw the other side and returned, who understood how precious life was, how valuable every moment, how important every connection. The fleet returned to Harmony Prime. Heroes welcomed home. But Jiwoo did not feel like a hero. He felt like someone who got lucky, who made wishes and somehow survived the consequences, who stumbled through impossible situations and came out the other side. Just a repair technician, nothing special. Except now he knew. Everyone was special. Every life mattered. Every choice created ripples. Every moment held infinite possibility. Days passed. Then weeks. Life returned to something resembling normal. But nothing was truly normal anymore. The galaxy had changed. Haewon's temples became different places, not just locations for worship, but places for dialogue, for questions, for understanding. The goddess herself visited regularly, talked with mortals, learned from them, taught them, shared with them. Connection. Real connection. Something she never had before. Something she treasured more than power. Humanity gained new status, new respect. The species that taught a goddess, that fought alongside gods, that changed cosmic balance through simple kindness. They were invited to join councils, to share perspectives, to bridge gaps between different civilizations. Taeyang became an expert in divine technology. Taeyun published groundbreaking research on cosmic consciousness. Kyungmi served as ambassador between dozens of species. And Jiwoo? He went back to fixing machines, replacing wires, doing maintenance. Simple work, honest work, important work. Because now he understood. Every job mattered. Every task connected to everything else. The person who fixed the machines kept the station running. The station supported thousands of lives. Those lives touched millions more. Everything connected. Everything mattered. Everyone was important, but he was different now. Changed. Not physically, mentally, spiritually. He saw the world differently, saw people differently, saw connections everywhere, threads linking everything to everything else. The web of existence, beautiful, fragile, precious, worth protecting, worth nurturing, worth caring about.